Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, The Business Value of VMware NSX Advanced Load Balancer, also known as AVI. So I'm very honored to be joined today by Brad Casemore from IDC. So he is an analyst, VP of research at IDC, very well known in the industry. Before we actually turn over for Brad to have a quick introduction as well as the presentation, I have just a few housekeeping notes to state here. First of all, this session is being recorded live right now, and you will be able to view the on-demand version shortly after the webinar. We'll also send out a PDF version of the deck so that you can view it later as well. And we also have the Q&A window where you can type in your questions. We won't be able to answer that during the duration of the presentation, but towards the end, we will have dedicated Q&A time to address each and every single of these questions that you have. All right. And then another thing I want to point out is you might hear, NSX Advanced Load Balancer or AVI or NSX ALB kind of interchangeably during the presentation, but they are all referring to the same product. We were acquired by VMware 3 years ago as the multi-cloud load balancing and application security solution, and that is what we're talking about today. All right. Now, without further ado, Brad, let's kind of introduce ourselves to the audience.
Absolutely. Brad Casemore here. Thank you very much, Clay. Brad Casemore, and I am the Research VP for Data Center and Multi-Cloud Networks at IDC. And in very simple terms, that includes all of the software and hardware network infrastructure that you would find in data centers and increasingly also in cloud. So I also cover the networking to clouds, within clouds, and across clouds in the form of multi-cloud networking. And as you can imagine, load balancing and ADC technology is a significant part of the research that I conduct in my portfolio. Thank you, Lei.
Absolutely. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Lei Yan. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for AVI. I have been with AVI for 4+ years since the, before acquisition. Can't believe that I'm still getting very excited with the technology as well as the customers that we help solve their challenges, both in data centers and the cloud. So I'm very happy to join Brad in this discussion. As I mentioned, we were going to have some pretty interactive discussion initially before Brad kind of dives right into the details of the study, which is the focus of this webinar. All right.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm going to set this up by talking a little about context. And of course, I suppose the star attraction from in terms of what I'm presenting today will be the results of the business value study. But first of all, I want to provide a framework that I think will lead smoothly into the actual presentation of the business value results. Today, I think you all know that modern applications are really in the forefront of digital business, right? Apps are more distributed and they are going through a modernization process. And what that means is that applications have never been more important. If you think about modern applications, they're not just, as they were traditionally, back office processes, which are important, don't get me wrong, but now they're really front and center. They're how employees, customers, and partners interact with the business, and they become the face of a digital business. They help to, of course, provide the agility and responsiveness and business results that organizations need as they go through digital transformation. The challenge is, and this is a complicating factor, is that applications are more distributed than ever before. They're, residing in, of course, still on-premises data centers. We still have lots of those applications, traditional and some modern, but they're also in clouds, they're in co-location facilities, and they're moving to some of the new edge environments as well, whether it be cloud edge or other forms of edge, including OT and IoT edge. But applications are also undergoing a significant architectural shift as monolithic applications are being modernized and refactored into cloud native architectures. And this is another significant shift that adds more complexity. So, you have the fact that applications are now the star of the business, right? It's how digital transformation is realized. They're a key conduit to customers, partners, and others in your ecosystem, of course, employees. And they're also going through this modernization process in terms of their architecture. So there's a lot of complexity out there, but obviously new and existing applications have to be supported because they're so critical to business success. Now, it bears, of course, all you folks will know this, but many users won't know that applications depend on application delivery infrastructure, including load balancers. They ensure that applications perform optimally, that they deliver all of the requisite availability, responsiveness, reliability, security, and elastic scalability, which is very important in a cloud context. And the shift to modern applications puts even more of a stress and more of an onus on load balancing and application delivery architecture because it needs to be end-to-end. It needs to be ubiquitous across that landscape that I talked about earlier. It needs to be more software defined. You have to use processes that are more cloud-like and cloud conformant, and that involves software defined infrastructure and software defined networking. It needs to be intelligently automated. And it needs to be automated not just on day zero and day one, but it needs to be automated throughout the life cycle. And you need more visibility, which provides intelligence to your automation. It allows you to have intelligent automation, and that allows you to provide the agility, the flexibility, and the workload protection in terms of security, and Lei mentioned that earlier, that are really important for both modern and traditional applications. That's another that's another point I want to mention. You can't leave the traditional apps behind. There is no application that can be left behind when you're dealing with application delivery infrastructure and load balancing. But there's no question that modern applications and modern application architectures put a stress on things like being able to automate throughout the life cycle so that you can have provisioning, automated provisioning and management for north, south, and east-west load balancing, right, within the data center and without, and that's where global server load balancing comes into play. And you can see that mentioned there. And then, of course, you need to be able to have a more developer and DevOps friendly capability with your application delivery infrastructure and load balancing. So you can be able to align with CI/CD processes and blue-green scenarios and other canary deployments and so forth. And as I said earlier, we're dealing with a distributed environment now. So you need things like global server load balancing, you need things like web application firewall, and you need it wherever your HTTP and HTTPS and HTTP2 apps are going to be. You need to have north-south ingress, and you need to have multi-cluster and intra-cluster service meshes as your containerized and microservices environments become more complex. We certainly see, and I mentioned multi-cloud, this distribution of applications. We know that multi-cloud strategies are now predominating in enterprise plans. We asked the question not too long ago in our Cloud Pulse survey about respondents. These were decision makers who were asked over the next 2 years, how would you describe your use of different on-premises and off-premises and specifically cloud environments? And you can see that fewer than a quarter responded that they will focus on a single cloud environment. All of the rest had permutations of multi-cloud. Now, some were more ambitious than others, right? They wanted to have a multi-cloud environment, for instance, a very small minority where a single application can run seamlessly across different clouds. That's a truly distributed in its nature application. Most are getting to multi-cloud in more incremental ways, but the important thing is, this is an important strategic posture, and it's probably one shared by many of you out there today. Now, applications, as I said, are setting the agenda in this multi-cloud world where different applications are, let's say, optimized or should run in different clouds. And that really comes to the question we asked here. We wanted to ask, well, why are you using multiple IaaS cloud providers? And you can see here that there are many reasons. They're all important. One said, hey, we have a mix of different applications or use cases. 43% said we have a mix of different applications or use cases, and they're suited to different clouds, right? You want to run it where it's going to provide the best results. We had 33%, a third, saying that they have guidance to use more than one IaaS provider to mitigate the risk of vendor lock-in, in other words, cloud vendor lock-in. I think that's a perfectly natural course to follow. You don't want to become too reliant on one cloud. You want to be able to have a capability that extends into other clouds. Some started with one IaaS provider, but expanded to others, 31% for architectural reasons. Sometimes those architectural reasons, we've found if you dig into that a bit more, are actually occasioned by M&A. So you get another company, they've been using a different cloud, and now you've got to be able to accommodate that. And you can see some of the other reasons, such as specific features are only available in a particular cloud. It may not be your incumbent cloud. And some departments have sort of done their own thing, right? Like ships in the night. We definitely see that. And then there's the objective of gaining pricing leverage with cloud providers and saying, well, I don't necessarily have to go to your cloud. I have choices. These are all of the drivers for multi-cloud. And what it means is that your multi-cloud application delivery infrastructure and your load balancing need to be able to help to achieve these objectives. Now, it's very important if we think about what you need to do to achieve those objectives and what you need to do as you think about your multi-cloud application delivery infrastructure, with load balancing, of course, being a core component of that. You obviously, because it's complicated, you have to focus on solutions that give you operational simplicity throughout the application delivery infrastructure lifecycle. This is where your selection of vendor can really help. You want to be able to pick a platform that gives you simplicity, not only on day zero and day one, but throughout the life cycle. You want to be able to leverage in that respect intelligent automation, which simplifies and speeds provisioning and troubleshooting and remediation day two, right? And ongoing change management and optimizations in day end. You want to be able, as a core component feature, that have observability that bolsters that intelligent automation throughout that life cycle and gives you a more proactive stance in terms of your operations, so that you're on top of problems, ideally before they happen, or you're able to remedy them very quickly. You don't want to play a situation where you've got a lot of latency and how quickly you react, because of course that means that applications and users are being affected and the finger of blame is being pointed at the network. So you want to move to a more proactive model of managing this infrastructure. And you want to consider, because you're moving to a distributed environment and you're moving to cloud, more of an as-a-service consumption models that's as flexible as the clouds that where your workloads are going. You want to be able to have this application infrastructure, of course, that extends across all of your environments and all of your form factors. So it includes the different application architectures. It includes whether your applications are, bare metal, whether they're virtualized, whether they're containerized and going cloud native. So you need to support all those form factors. And ideally, you'd have flexible licensing to accommodate that, so that you're able to evolve with the application strategy of your organization. The infrastructure can move in lockstep with it. And you want to be able to have orchestration. Of course, it's so important across this distributed environment that makes it simple to deploy a pool of application delivery infrastructure resources and load balancing across the distributed environment that applications are now entering. Now, as I said, the star of my segment of the presentation is the business value study. I'm going to mention it briefly here. The importance and its linkage to what I've just covered is that if you do things right, you derive a significant number of qualitative and quantitative benefits from using application delivery infrastructure and load balancing. And in that regard, and I'll talk more about this later, in fact, I'll present slides that get into this in a considerable amount of detail, but we did a study looking at VMware NSX Advanced Load Balancer, formerly AVI, and we looked at how it helped customers in terms of quantitative results, real hard business benefits, right? And it was able to help them scale their load balancing and better support development and business operations, while also, and this is not a trivial matter, allowing them to have more cost-efficient and cost-effective operational regimens. And the key results, top line impact, as you can see here, 13.57 million higher revenue, average higher revenue per year for the participants in this study. They had 27% higher application developer productivity, which is very important. This is all about becoming aligned with those application development processes. On day two operations, 90% faster to scale capacity. So, it was able to basically scale with the needs of the business and that sort of elastic scalability. Another important fact, 54% fewer outages because you're able to troubleshoot and remediate a lot faster and more effectively, and you're able to move to more of that proactive management model at a lower cost of operations with a 6-month payback and 43% cost of operational savings. One customer quote here, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, is the key benefits of the technology as called out by one customer with the visibility, reduction of cost, and the ability to scale elastically on demand. Legacy solutions, which is what of course they had before, more of a hardware defined load balancing and ADC model, those just were not able to move with the same agility, flexibility, and elastic scale. So with that, I'm going to hand the next segment of today's webinar over to Leigh, and I'll be back with some of the detailed results of the business value study.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before Brad kind of a deep dive into the study itself, I just want to kind of introduce Avi's, solutions a little bit more. Some of you might know us, some of you, this is a brand new approach, right? So as Brad has mentioned, the kind of the framework, the world that we're living in today, applications are the business. They're not only supporting the business, and I totally agree with that. And we see a lot of that being really reflected in the day-to-day life of our customers. So they told us they have a multi-cloud environment. It's here today. On average, they have about 4 to 5 different environments, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud itself to manage, right? So that kind of magnitude of complexity and really the task is pretty daunting. On top of that, the applications are definitely evolving, and it's not to exaggerate if they say microservices based applications are going mainstream, meaning they really want to deploy the Kubernetes clusters in production today instead of just in test dev environment. So with all that mega trends that we are in today, I think we think it's really important to deploy a new approach to application delivery and security as well, because applications environment involved, your approach to deliver those applications also need to evolve. So that's where Avi comes in. And Brad has mentioned a lot of these words like efficiency, agility, flexibility, automation. And I couldn't agree with more that these are the business benefits that we're looking from a platform perspective to deliver. Now, just a little bit deeper of what I mean by efficiency, it's very much linked to the simplicity aspect. How can you simplify your deployment, your configurations in day 0, troubleshooting in day 1 and day 2, and also manage the life cycle of your applications? How can you spin up? How can you scale up? How can you, upgrade, for example? So these are all very important day-to-day tasks that we look to very much dramatically simplify the life of our IT folks. The other thing is, we've heard it again and again that we want to match the speed of the business. It essentially is, decrease the time to market for application rollouts, right? So how can you do that on top of adapting to all the changes that you're experiencing in networking as well as security front? So that's very challenging, and that IT budget has been flat for the last few years, and our team has been asked to do more with essentially less resources available, right? So therefore, it becomes super important to have a platform that makes flexibility options available to you. What I mean by that is, the application delivery platform shouldn't dictate or shouldn't be different or siloed depending on where your applications live. You should be able to choose the best environment to deploy the best applications that you have instead of the other way around, right? And oftentimes we see people with multiple environments end up with multiple different solutions, even from the same vendor. So that's something that we want to really try to help solve with a single platform approach that works across any environments, And we kind of tout ourselves as the Switzerland of load balancer or Switzerland of WAF, that the underlying infrastructure shouldn't be dictating a lot of the infrastructure or application decisions that you make. Last but not least, I want to emphasize the importance of automation, because hey, in order to do more with less, you really need to have deeply built in applications. But not to say application equate APIs, right? All of these solutions nowadays provide certain degree of APIs. But I think 100% versus 20%, there is a huge difference, because if you want to be able to automate end to end, you do need 100% API-based solutions, so that it integrates with all the ecosystem you have today and allow you to truly get the benefits of automation. And a lot of that, as Brad has mentioned, that intelligence, right, that decision automation that is built into the platform will also eliminate a lot of the manual tasks required to automate APIs, for example. So that, what the platform is taking into considerations of how to manage your capacity, when to scale out, and when to trigger a notification, is all the intelligence that's built into the platform. So that kind of lay the ground work of what we think the benefits that our end users and customers should enjoy. So a quick overview of what Avi is all about. Brad, if you would go to the next slide.
Sure.
We really want to provide a very kind of unified solutions to any environment for any applications. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, right, all these functionalities such as local, global, traffic management, WAF, DDoS, bot management, container ingress, analytics, and DNS and IPM solutions, these are all integrated into a single platform. So you have one SKU, then you have access to all these functionalities. We do not encourage, a siloed kind of product approach here. The other thing I want to emphasize is we're true multi-cloud, meaning that you're able to deploy applications wherever that you feel like it makes sense. You can pick the cloud of your choice. You can deploy, your VMware stack, and depending on how many products that you have. For us, we integrate with them, and also our infrastructure makes it such that we're agnostic to them. So it doesn't matter where you want to deploy your application, what form factors you choose to deploy applications, whether it's virtualized or containerized, or even on bare metals that we support. So in a nutshell, this is a truly integrated application delivery and security platform. So you're able to deploy one single platform for all the environments that you have. And then let me kind of dig a little bit deeper into our infrastructure. And this is the build. Brad, if you would just build it out. So the unique architecture that we have at Avi is a software-defined architecture. So you can see here that we have separated out the control plane from the data plane, meaning you have the Avi controller as the single kind of API endpoint, as well as the where you manage all the lifecycle for your data plane components, which is called the service engine. So these service engines will be the actual load balancers and WAFs that you can deploy closest to your applications. So whether you have on-prem applications or public or cloud applications, right? And you can deploy them on bare metals, VMs, or containers. So that's the infrastructure agnostic piece that I was talking about. With this fabric, or we call it application service fabric, deployed across a different environment, it's also very elastic. So you're able to scale just in time and to have the right capacity for the needs of your applications. Because as we all know, if you have somewhat unpredictable traffic these days, you want to be sure that you have load balancing resources and WAF resources that's elastic as well. So just like how you would expect from a public cloud environment. The other thing is the fabric should be pretty resilient, right? If one of them fail, hey, no problem. Let me just spin up another, capacity somewhere else where you have available licenses. So in this way, that it's a very it's essentially a self-healing and elastic fabric, which lends itself very well to today's modern applications in Kubernetes and microservices, right? Last but not least, that we have automation and analytics built in. Analytics, I want to emphasize the prime location that a load balancer lives. Imagine this is right between your end users and your backend application servers. So we think that we're in line with all the traffic when we are able to log every transactions so that you have deep visibility into your environment as well as great insights about where resources are needed so you can make them available and so on. Last but not least, I want to mention the Avi Pulse cloud services. So these are the set of services that integrates into our Avi controller. You can get services such as central licensing management. You can have proactive support. So to Brad's point, how can you notice an issue before it even, how can you resolve an issue before you even notice, the end user even notice? And the other is it provides a threat intelligence update. So to make sure that your platform is up to date in terms of the latest security threats, so we can protect against, vulnerabilities such as Log4j relatively quickly. So that's kind of a nutshell about our architecture, and this is basically the essence of how we are able to provide a lot of these defined capability in one platform, right? And we offer these application services so that you can consume it with full flexibility and with analytics and observability built in. All right, so that's a quick way for me to introduce Avi, and let me get back to Brad, which we're going to go into a little bit details about how we help our customers to realize their business benefits.
Thank you very much, Lei. And now I'm going to delve into the business value study and the project that we did looking at VMware NSX Advanced Load Balancer and its benefits for enterprise customers. I just want to set it up for you first so that you understand the context. Again, we conducted research that really explored the business value for organizations that had deployed and used VMware's NSX Advanced Load Balancer, prior, once called Avi, of course, before the acquisition by VMware and the integration into the portfolio. And we specifically looked at how it supported its VMware and other application environments. So it wasn't just the VMware environments, but it was also, of course, other environments and clouds. The project included 7 detailed interviews with organizations that were using the product and had experience or knowledge about the benefits and cost associated with VMware Advanced Load Balancer. So these folks had to be qualified. They had to be able to talk specifically about the why they chose the product, the implementation, and of course the benefits that accrued from deployment and use. And based on this analysis, using basically a process that our business value team has at IDC, we created a model that expressed the value and cost of VMware NSX ALB. And the model really served as the basis for the slides you're going to see here and a resulting white paper that is available now. So just a quick overview of the firms. We spoke with, these are the firmographics of the respondents. Number of employees, as you can see, fairly decent. The average number of employees was over 55,000. You can see the median there as well. You can see the number of IT staff, 9,246. Relatively speaking, the median is about 5,000. You can also see the number of business applications, which ranges fairly widely, but I think is representative of a broad expanse of organizations out there. The average was 1,264. The median was 375. Of course, the businesses cover a number of industries that you can see there, right? And some are a little more, we'll call them digital natives than others. Some are more traditional, and that explains a lot of these indices that you're seeing here in the range. In terms of average revenue, about $16.5 billion. The median was about $6.25 billion, and you can see the range there extended all the way from a little over $1.25 billion to over $52 billion. Countries representative of regions, certainly US, the United States, we had 3 respondents. We had respondents also coming individual countries or individual respondents from Australia, Belgium, France, and Ireland. And again, the industries there, you can see that, again, some are more digital natives, but some are traditional enterprises in the industries represented here. So we'll go on to the next slide. Now, of course, there is a progression here, right? We look first at why respondents chose the product. So you can see that these were the things that attracted them to NSX ALB, and these were the drivers for the purchase and for the implementation. You can see that we have 5 that are highlighted here from the interviews that were done. You can see the one respondent, and there's a detailed response here, and all of this, of course, is reflected in the white paper and contained in the white paper. This respondent said, well, it is the best combination of cost efficiencies and strong performance. In this case, they're building a private cloud, and they wanted to get a load balancing solution that gave them cost efficiencies and a really good balance between TCO and performance, and that's why they chose NSX ALB. They're also looking for orchestration, as you can see, and a roadmap that would be able to move in lockstep with their application environment. There's another one who looked at the legacy environment, the legacy load balancers they were using. Those sort of physical hardware appliances just didn't have, they have to over provision, and there's a significant cost associated with those. And they were looking for management features that would also be bring some simplicity to this environment. Another respondent who was looking at the need for scalability and cost efficiency, so that elastic horizontal scaling, very important to this customer. Some were looking at automation capabilities, and as Leigh and I have both mentioned, this is increasingly important as you move into a world defined by modern applications that are distributed. And you can see that the analytics and visibility was a big draw for them. It was not just automation on day one, but it was that ongoing intelligent automation that was very important to them. And then we have one respondent who was looking at visibility again, flexibility and cost. And these were the reasons why they chose NSX ALB. Now, these are the most significant benefits of actually using the technology. And you can see that, as you would expect, there is some agreement in many cases between the reasons why the technology was selected and the benefits. Sometimes it's exactly as they expected, and sometimes there are some other things that rose to the fore. But you can see the speed of deployment and traffic visibility is a very significant benefit here, and it's called out. The second one, which we bolded, was the visibility, cost, and scalability. The visibility was called out as a very significant benefit here, and that, of course, led to not only being able to provide for better application experience, but also the reduction of cost and scaling on demand, right? They point out if we had the legacy solution, we would have had to order more hardware and equipment and wait up to 6 months, but this is able to scale on demand, that elastic scale that we mentioned earlier. Ease of management, scalability, and automatic failover were very important. So, you don't have to add more load balancers and go through that process, that sort of hardware-defined process. Failover is automatic. Orchestration was very important, called out on the fourth one. Being able to orchestrate, and that's very important, no question. And then the scalability and support of the business, right? Being able to, and this is something that comes through in a lot of interviews we do when organizations move to more software-defined and elastic software-based network technologies, is they say, now I feel like I can actually contribute to business outcomes, and it gets me away from being perceived as this lumbering cost center, right? I'm able to move at the speed of the business, and that was called out as being a very important benefit of using the technology. This is a numerical slide, as you can see, in terms of average annual benefits per organization, and we've grouped it into IT staff productivity benefits, business productivity benefits, IT infrastructure cost reductions, and risk mitigation and user productivity. And you can see this is a total. Total is quite significant. It's a total when you roll it all up of almost 7 million, more than $6.75 million. And you can see it's IT staff productivity is the biggest part of it. You're able to do things much faster and more effectively, but there are also significant benefits in the other categories as well. Now, this is a average annual benefit per application. And it's a bit of a different look at it, right? You can see this is per application, so it's a different metric. But again, IT staff productivity benefits the actual folks who are deploying and using the technology, seeing tremendous productivity gains here in terms of almost 4,000 of the 6,303 total. Now, if we look at some of the quotes, some of the qualitative quotes around cost and staff benefits of using VMware NSX ALB, you can see that cost efficiencies from leveraging commodity hardware, right? You don't need a customized hardware appliance to do this. You can run on commodity hardware. You're able to run commodity hardware that's already available and managed by our compute team. If we need to scale up to support a customer event or holiday traffic, rather than going through the process of buying proprietary hardware, you're able to leverage the existing hardware that you already have. There's efficiency savings, there's cost savings, and there's time savings there. Something I would raise, and we didn't necessarily, well, we did to a degree, but I think this is becoming a bigger issue, and we're seeing it in our research where organizations are saying, it's important for me to be able to use commodity hardware for my network and security services because of the current supply chain complications that are going on in the world. You know, if you have to wait for a more complex piece of hardware, there's more of a possibility, if not a probability, that there will be additional supply chain delays, right? In order to have all the components and be able to get it manufactured and shipped. So being able to leverage this off-the-shelf hardware gives you flexibility. And it's a very important, it's not only the cost savings, but it's flexibility in a world that's extremely volatile. You can see the second one here, cost-effective way to provide load balancing and capacity. You know, being able to leverage NSX ALB, you know, you're able to you're able to be a lot more efficient in your use of load balancing resources that are more elastic and software defined, and that's very important. The configuration automation saves significant staff time, right? Being able to do that is a very important thing, and you know, it allows the user to do some self-service and do some things on their own as you're able to automate some of these processes, and it leads to the staff being able to concentrate on other things that, of course, not that this doesn't contribute to business results, but they're able to look at how they can further advance the business interests through the technology, network technology in the data center and beyond. And being able to centralize automation is very important, right? You're able to be able to use this automation to be able to scale much faster and integrate processes and really move at the speed of business. And there you go, called out again, the troubleshooting efficiency, right? The time savings really add up. Upgrades are easier, they're smoother. You're being able to manage incidents in a more proactive way, and you're able to cut time it takes to do these things, and that's very important when you're looking at things like upgrading a data center or, you know, onboarding new applications and processes. If we look at the annualized cost of load balancing capacity, one thing that we saw here was that study participants who were moving away from hardware appliances, hardware-based appliances, they almost all were in this study, they were able to avoid the over-provisioning associated with those hardware appliances, and they're able to, as a result of the elastic scalability, handle traffic peaks without having to wait for hardware processes to play out. And that was very important to these organizations. You can see the before and after snapshot here, you know, with a 40% less cost associated with load balancing capacity. You can see here, this is the network and traffic team's abilities, and these really came, and you can see them right across. We've got before, we've got with VMware NSX ALB. You can see the difference. You can see the percentage benefit, which is very significant, 49%. This really derived from the ability to automate and orchestrate load balancing, and with the ability to facilitate greater self-service, and that reduces the burden on the networking teams. It allows them to again be a lot more productive and effective in the way they utilize their time and resources. The impact on the cost of operations over a 3-year span, right? You can see that cost and staff efficiencies allowed study participants to significantly reduce overall load balancing costs. It was 43% on average, which saves them $3 million per organization over a 3-year span. So very significant again, and you can see how we've broken out the segmentation here in the bar chart. The darker blue is direct load balancing cost, and the lighter blue is cost of staff time. Pretty significant in both respects. Then the impact on cost of operations. This is 3 years on a per application basis. So again, this allowed the participants in the study to significantly reduce overall load balancing costs by 43% on average, which saved them about $2,800 per application over 3 years. And again, you can see the dark blue and the lighter color in terms of the direct load balancing costs, and then the cost of staff time is also represented on this chart. Now, qualitative benefits around performance and scalability of using VMware NSX ALB. And you can see a number of these came to the fore. But at the top, we see greatly reduces friction associated with bringing new services to market. You're able to be more flexible. You're able to be more agile. Product team wants to develop a new service. In this case, the customer said, hey, we want to develop this and we want to figure out what this looks like. How can you support it? And now they can say, well, you know, we're able to do that in a relatively simple and straightforward way. And, you know, they can even come to them in a much shorter timeline and say, here's the capacity we need. How can you help us accommodate that? And now they have less friction associated with those processes, less butting heads. You're able to say, yeah, we can do that. We can be able to support you in a much faster and more frictionless way. And the automation obviously means faster delivery of new capacity as needed too. So, you know, it's capacity for new and existing services in this case, and that's a result of the automation, so that you're able to say, okay, what's required in a global application or distributed application environment, you can have it in hours rather than weeks in this case. And you're able to automate it. You're able to get the server in place, and load balancing is now part of the process. It's part of that application delivery life cycle. There's a much more integral conjoinment in that area. The self-service enables faster time to market. That makes sense. The team, application team, is able to take advantage of the automation and orchestration to be able to move at a much faster pace. And now it's integral. It's integrated into what they need, and they're able to move fast. And the development team also benefits from the quality of the platform, where, you know, you're able to say it's a more stable platform. It scales elastically, and of course through the greater visibility they were able to gain, there are also fewer errors, and you're able to address any potential problems at an earlier stage of threat, we'll put it that way. The improved availability in this case, and we can all think at times of the year, certainly depending on your industry. If you're an e-tailer, for instance, there's Black Friday, there's the holidays at the end of the year, and, you know, having a platform and application delivery infrastructure and load balancing that can respond to that as needed, without the imposition or initiation of a lot of hardware-defined processes, can ensure that, you know, you have everything from licensing to the actual resources that moves into place as required and can be spun up quickly and spun back down. That's another point. That's part of the elastic scalability, is that you use what you need when you need it. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. The time required to scale load balancing capacity, and you can see this is a very significant result. I mean, 90% faster is always a significant departure from what you've done before. So this all comes from study participants being able to readily scale the load balancing capacities to match business needs, going from 3 months on average to less than 2 weeks. So extremely beneficial result here for the respondents to the study. The impact on unplanned downtime KPIs, and you can see here a number of indices are captured. We've got number of unplanned outages, the mean time to repair hours, productivity loss per year in FTEs per organization, value of lost productivity per organization per year is also captured here. You can see the before and after, and you can see the percentage benefits, which are all striking. The improved network performance and fewer bottlenecks resulted in significantly fewer unplanned outages and faster resolution when they did occur. And that, of course, limits not only the business operational impact, but it also improves the overall application experience that users see, whether they're employees or customers. And then these are specific calculations by category, quantitative benefit, and calculated average annual value. And you can see them here for, direct load balancer savings, which 40%, some of these went over earlier. You can see the load balancing team efficiency is very significant. The troubleshooting team efficiencies are captured here. Application development team productivity gains, certainly not trivial at 27%. You can see the productivity gains are quite, quite notable at 62% less productive time lost. Then the higher net revenue, and everybody wants that these days as we're going through so much volatility in the world. Over 13.5 million, and that's a 15% margin applied. And then the total annual benefits, as we said at the start, almost 6.8 million per year. This is the 3-year ROI analysis, and 3 years is a good ROI framework. You can see the benefit per organization, per 1,000 users, and per application. You can see the investment in discounted terms is captured there. Net present value is captured. The ROI, which is MPV investment, 449%. The payback period is 6 months, whether it's per organization, per 1,000 users, or per application, and the discount factor is also captured. So just to summarize, you've seen the business value results. You saw what I talked about as being important in terms of load balancing and application delivery infrastructure in a changing world. We know there's a growing emphasis now. We see it in all of our studies. There's some new studies around the future of digital infrastructure we've done, and we know that organizations recognize that digital infrastructure is critical to their business resilience. You have to have digital infrastructure that is matched for purpose to your application and data needs. And usually that means a modernization of what you've had before. We know that there's an increased importance of cloud and multi-cloud. As workloads go to those environments, you have to be able to accommodate them with load balancing and application delivery infrastructure. We also know that powerful new constituencies are coming to the fore. Of course, the network teams are still heavily involved in this, networking and NetOps, but you also have other folks coming into the picture as a result of cloud native and modern applications, cloud architects, platform teams, developers, and lines of business. They're taking a greater interest in how this infrastructure supports their business and their objectives. We know as a result of these cloud native apps, things like ingress controllers and service meshes are also coming into the picture. We know that more refactored applications are finding new homes in IS clouds, and we're seeing that all the time, whether we talk to enterprises and large organizations in North America, in EMEA, in APAC, or anywhere else in the world. And we know that as these applications are moving to these environments, you have to be able to provision and orchestrate load balancing and application delivery infrastructure to support these apps. They have to move in lockstep with them, and they have to move seamlessly to be able to support them. So our guidance for your customers who are out there and listening to and watching today's presentation is prioritize and strengthen your application delivery architecture for your hybrid environments and your multi-cloud strategies of your organization. As we saw earlier, most organizations are on the road to multi-cloud. Make sure that this critical piece of network infrastructure, load balancing and application delivery infrastructure, is not left behind. You want to make sure that it's in place, and you want to be as proactive as possible on that front. Ensure that observability and visibility are there so that you can have agile and effective day 2 and day n operations. It's a very important perspective that it's not just day 1. You have to be able to bring agility to all of these processes. And you need to be able to engage. There needs to be more collaboration so you understand requirements, so you're able to get in front of them. Right? And we know that developers don't want to manage this stuff. Certainly as it gets more complicated, they want nothing to do with actual hands-on management, but they do want certain benefits of this technology. And we saw that reflected in the business value study, and you can provide it for them. You want to strengthen your application security capabilities around WAF, API security, workload protection, bot management, etc. You want to ensure that application delivery infrastructure remains aligned with application requirements. So again, that comes back to the collaboration, gaining as much foresight as you can into where your organization is going there. if you interact and you're part of that process, you can get in front of it and you can really become a contributor to business outcomes. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Leigh for the next stage of today's presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett, so much for walking us in details about what this business value study entails. I've also included a link to be able to download the IDC paper directly. You know, there will be a lot more tables and diagrams that's in that white paper, but Brad did a great job summarizing most of the key findings of you know, Avi's business value study. And then the second thing I want to encourage you folks today, it's a more a business conversation, but you know, we have a lot of you know, technical resources there to convince you that this architecture is the new approach that will address some of these challenges that Brad has laid out in this webinar. So I would encourage you guys to attend a free workshop that we offer. We offer two types. One is the 90-minute workshop. The other is a 4-day workshop. So it depends on, you know, you can get your hands dirty first with the 90-minute, with the 60-minute lab in it, right? That's unheard of if you have, you know, traditional hardware appliances. Am I going to get my hands dirty without a shipping order, right? And waiting for months. So that's the kind of the beauty of a software-defined a solution. Last but not least, you know, what Brad has shared is the detailed interviews that they have conducted independently with 7 of our customers. However, you know, I know each use case, each customer scenario is different. I do want to offer the opportunity to have a business assessment, value assessment with our team so that we're able to actually look at your specific environments and use cases and do analysis as well. Okay, so I think, Brad, I think it's time for some questions here. Let me go over to the questions here. Let me address like one very simple question. One is, you know, Paul was asking if does Avi require NSX to run? You know, the simple answer to that is no. Even if we have the NSX in our name, we are really infrastructure agnostic. We can work with VMware environments very well, with or without NSX, but we can also work on other environments such as cloud, and you know, and if you have a non-VMware environment, we work in that environment as well. As I mentioned, because of the software-defined architecture, allows us, right, to free you from having to get tightly coupled with a specific environment. So I just want to clarify that real quickly. The other questions, I think, Brad, is really good for you. That with this one person says, most of my applications are on-prem in data centers. Why shall I adopt this software-based load balancing over traditional legacy appliances?
Right. I think, you know, obviously across a distributed environment and a multi-cloud environment, and I talked about the reasons why it's good to think about a more software-defined approach. But even in a data center, you can get away from things like over-provisioning. You can be able to provide more self-service for developers. You can certainly become a lot more operationally efficient and a lot more aligned with application requirements. I think the software-defined approach gives you, even in an on-prem environment, a lot more scalability, a lot more simplicity of operations, and a lot more operational benefits in that respect. And I think also the developer benefits would improve too. So I think there are good reasons to go software defined, even if you are today still on a entirely on-premises environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's more the freedom, the flexibility of choice. Like it gives you the opportunity to go, you know, to a different environment. Even if you choose to still stay on-prem, we do have customer segments which, you know, will not go to public cloud, but they might be thinking about building their own private cloud on-prem. So
Yep.
some of the benefits like elasticity, automation, and the simplicity of operations, those all still apply regardless where you decide to have your applications. The other question is, what are some of the primary risks and benefits of taking a holistic approach to app delivery across multiple form factors and environments?
I think there are more benefits than risks, but there are risks, and the risks are that you really understand where your organization is going and what is required from the entire life cycle, right? So you need to, again, coming back to what we were talking earlier, you need intelligent automation from day zero through day two and day end, and you need to make sure that that's all covered. You need to make sure that you understand the form factors and the distribution of the applications. You need to understand what is required of those applications from a load balancing and application delivery infrastructure standpoint and from an application security standpoint. And you need to make sure that all of that is addressed and you plan properly for it. And I think communication is important throughout the process, because this will guide exactly how you do your orchestration, how you set policies for things like self-service, how you build out, for instance, across a hybrid or multi-cloud environment, how you build out various policies to scale elastically and fail over, et cetera. So it's about thinking it through and planning thoroughly. And I think if you do that, all those benefits that we spoke about, as you saw in the business value study, all of those will come to fruition, and you'll be able to realize them. But most of the risks are associated with doing thorough planning. I think if you do that, you'll be fine.
Nice. And we have one last question from Rahu. What Kubernetes platform do you support? We support the vanilla Kubernetes, Red Hat OpenShift, as well as VMware Tanzu. So the major Kubernetes distribution, we will be able to serve as the ingress controller, as well as providing GSLV and WAF functionalities for your Kubernetes clusters, regardless which version that you decide to deploy. All right, so I'd like to thank Brad again for your time, and this is going to be a great resource for technical folks as well as line of business owners, for example, right? Because they will really be able to see the business benefits by deploying a new approach to application delivery can bring to their business. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending this webinar, and you will get a recording as well as for the on-demand version, so that you can forward this to your coworker who have missed out because of time or a busy schedule. But you can always view the content as well as download the white paper that we have also included as part of the whole IDC study. All right, so thank you so much for and have a great day. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.